Welcome to the All Things Energy podcast. We are here to power up your understanding of the energy industry with some electrifying topics and some stellar guests. And speaking of stellar guests, it's my privilege to welcome to the All Things Energy podcast, Matt Grannan, CEO of Alliance Credit Union. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Well, Matt, I love to kind of dive into some kind of background stories, and we'll kind of jump into bank and financial stuff. But I like to kind of ask our guests, are you a Lubbock native, or how did you get here if you aren't?
So I'm not actually a Lubbock native, from Houston originally. And my brother, 5 years older than me, he came to school here at Tech. I was privileged to get to tag along during his orientation period.
Yes.
And I got to see Tech, and I got to see the excitement here. I got to see the wonderful people that are here, and honestly just fell in love with it and said, when I go to school, this is where I'm going to go. And, 5 years later, here I came to school at Tech and haven't left. Came here in 2001.
I'm not a Lubbock native either, but this place has a way of kind of keeping you.
I agree. I think that Lubbock is, for me, graduated from Tech. My wife, she's from Hale Center, so just right up the road.
Yep.
And originally, like a lot of Tech grads, I thought, well, we'll probably end up in Austin or someplace cool or more fun. And but as we started looking at the work landscape, the job environment, it started to become very obvious, at least in our experience, that there was a lot more opportunities here with companies that were the right size, where we felt like we could come in at a young age, fresh grads, and make an impact. And that's been our experience.
I mean, I've said this a lot to people, especially young people, when they're kind of exploring. I was a college young adult leader for about 10 years. So talked to a lot of people as they were reaching the end of their collegiate career, looking at professional starting. And I said, what has shocked me and it impressed me about Lubbock, I was a big city Dallas kid, and I thought, I need to be in a big city, in a big corporate setting, and so on and so forth. And what I didn't realize, and what I've come to so appreciate, is you're swimming in a massive ocean in the metro areas. And again, it's not a bad thing. There are opportunities there, but you're such a tiny little minnow.
Yep.
And often hard to get some attention, to build relationships. Whereas here, you've just described, is a smaller ocean, pond, lake, whatever you want to call it, body of water, and the opportunity to build relationships.
Agreed.
I think, to me, that has been a differentiator in growing personally, professionally, relationally, and the doors that come from relationships.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that given the smaller community, you're held accountable too. I think
that's good. Yeah.
I think a lot of, especially younger college students from, larger cities, there's a sense of anonymity. How do you say that word?
Anonymity.
Thank you.
There we go.
Where you kind of can be anonymous. And if you mess up, there's this feeling that, there's another group of people, there's another company, there's another circle, and not that that's even really a conscious thought, but I think that that's certainly there, especially for younger folks. And here in Lubbock, it's very obvious that you better have some character about you.
Yeah.
That's been my experience.
Boy, that's good. I'm going to pick into that a little bit. We have this saying in our Rise Energy of like, I'm probably going to run into you, customer, friend, vendor, client, whoever. I'm probably going to bump into you at United.
That's right.
Market Street. That's literally my opening phrase to someone. I'm like, have we met before? And we're looking at each other with that kind of look. And I'm like, you ever been to Market Street and had a salad burger? I probably stood in line next to you, right? Yeah. Because the community, it's not so small.
Sure.
That honoring people and relationships and serving and doing what's right is rewarded.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the opposite of doing that can be detrimental.
Yes.
Taking a shortcut.
That's right.
Not doing what you say you're going to do.
That's right. That's right.
And you work with companies as a financial institution, and you probably get a front row seat of those organizations and groups that are living up to that standard. Mm-hmm. And you've probably seen some of those that are like, gosh, wish you could have made that decision a little differently.
You do. You definitely do. And, you to your point, you go out to dinner with your wife on date night, it's the same places. You see the same people.
That's right. That's right.
You hope you have a good character, and it's not one of those situations where you regret running into people.
No,
like that.
That's right.
You will see each other and we'll do business with each other, and we'll go to the same churches, and our kids will play the same sports. And I think it's a good thing. ultimately.
No, it absolutely is. So tell me, how did your, post-collegiate, where did you find yourself going to? Did you immediately go into, financial services, or what doors opened to you that kind of navigated you to where you are today?
So I did. And I think like a lot of people, if I'm being honest, when I graduated from tech in 2006, I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I was going to school at tech, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm interested in a lot of things. I've always had a huge variety of different interests. And I just really didn't have that set thing that I was going to go do like some people do. And so I looked for opportunities where I could get into a company where I thought there was opportunity for growth, and kind of tried to find passion where I was and explore that and see if it was something that was interesting to me. And I was really, really lucky that my first job out of college was a teller at Alliance Credit Union.
Really?
Yeah.
Which branch?
So I was at the Quaker location.
Yep.
Around 84th and Quaker.
Yep.
It looked much different then. A little bit like a dentist office, if I've heard people describe it. A lot of wood, a lot of 1980s feel to it. But I started there, really didn't know a lot about the credit union industry at the time. And within that first year, I found myself really connecting with the mission, connecting with the idea of people helping people, this idea that you could have a highly functioning, not-for-profit, member-owned financial cooperative that was capable of doing pretty much all the things you need for consumer financial services. It really wasn't on my radar at all. And so when I started working for Alliance and realized that it was more than just words on a piece of paper or something on a wall, it was actually being lived. And, when you had members coming in that needed help, needed somebody to take a look at them as a person and not as just a credit score or, just some past, history on paper from a few mistakes or a life event that happened. You had people that actually wanted to take that deep dive with them and actually say, well, tell us your story. Tell us why, we should take a chance on you. And it was empowering to see that. And it was inspirational. And at that time, of course, I'm just a teller, not just a teller. I mean, it's honestly, that's where our members,
it's the engagement.
It's the engagement. And that's where most of our members experience credit union. But at that time, still not knowing a lot about the credit union space, that's kind of was the hook for me. And when anytime there was an opportunity to volunteer, I said yes. I said, I want to know more. I want to be a part of as much of this as I can. And it's been a good deal.
You said something that I think a lot of, I'm not going to say young people, but I think a lot of us, we sometimes neglect when we're navigating life, when we're looking at opportunities, I say this all the time, you're giving your time, energy, attention, resources every day to something.
For sure.
And knowingly or unknowingly, you're asking yourself the question, is this worth it?
Yeah.
Am I getting out of it what I really want? And when you reference that, as you caught the vision, not just written down, but seeing it played out in the way that you're serving people of all, varieties of life, it kind of grabbed you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kind of put words in your mouth because I think I heard you saying this, and that was a propellant. I kind of call it catching vision moves you forward in ways that just the everyday routine of life can't do for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it drives passion, right? And
absolutely.
Once you have that spark, man, you can get a lot of energy out of that.
Yep. I say this, I don't care what job you do. There are elements of what every one of us does that's annoying. We don't like it. We wish it wasn't part of our job description. But that's the nature of living and breathing in the world we live in today. Yeah. But when there's vision and there's passion identified within that, you can wake up in the morning and have excitement and go through the routines of the stuff that's annoying, getting to do the things that you do love doing because the vision, the purpose, the passion is there.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes, and I've actually got this in our up next to our boardroom, is it basically says that, nobody's making you do anything.
Yeah.
But, you're choosing to do everything that you do. So we all say, well, I don't want to do that. But if you do end up doing it, then you actually did want to do that because you had other choices.
Yes.
They weren't necessarily good choices, but everything we do is a choice, and we're free to make that choice every day. And for me, when I have those moments, or when, we are doing the mundane parts of life or things that we would prefer not to do, it's empowering, and it's something that, can drive you to work harder and to continue doing those things and get through the less pleasant parts of it when you realize that, no, I'm choosing this.
That's right.
This is worth it.
Yep. That's good. So kind of tell our audience, because a lot of people don't, they're like, oh, a credit union, a bank, are the same thing. And there are some key differences that separate them, perform similar services, certainly, but kind of describe just real quickly, kind of again, what makes a credit union different, what allows them to stand out, and how they serve a community.
Yeah, absolutely. So the most fundamental difference is how we are structured as a corporation. So we are a member-owned, not-for-profit financial cooperative, which means that I don't have a group of shareholders that I have to dole out profit for every month, every quarter, every board meeting, whatnot. My shareholders are the members.
Yeah.
And so that fundamental difference allows us to shift our focus from not being fully, it allows us to shift our focus from not maximizing profit in every transaction, but actually maximizing value, hopefully maximizing value for the member, because I don't have to squeeze every dollar out of that transaction. It's more about, how does this transaction create value for my membership? Who is the owner, right?
Yeah,
so it's really kind of a beautiful model, because those members then elect the board, who volunteer their time to ensure that I'm carrying on the mission, right?
Yep.
So it's a really a different model in that regard. And, I look at what we do, and I look at our place in the Lubbock community. And to me, we're focused on consumer financial services. And one of the things I like to tell people, if they really just in a quick soundbite, what's the real difference when the rubber hits the road? How does that really affect me as a borrower, as a consumer, as a member? And I tell them that, typically, the way I like to say it is a large commercial bank, they're typically going to focus on, doing the loan for the Ford dealership.
Yeah.
I want to do the loan for your Ford truck.
Yeah.
Right. I'm focused on the consumer level financial services. And that doesn't mean it's just vehicles and things. I mean, we as individual consumers oftentimes have, investment properties, things like that. That still falls into that bucket, right? But I'm not going to, Alliance isn't going to do a loan for, the next, Covenant, medical plaza or whatever.
That's right.
Right. So a healthy community needs a good mix of both. You need to have strong credit unions. You need to have strong banks.
So how long has Alliance been serving West Texas, Lubbock?
So since 1940.
Wow. No one knows that.
Yeah. So our first iteration, now we are the result of several mergers, hence the name Alliance, right? Yeah. We came together as Alliance back in the early 2000s. I want to say 2004 is when we finally emerged as Alliance. But the original credit union was out at Reese Air Force Base.
Oh, wow.
And it was a group of officers who didn't feel like they were necessarily getting the best offers from the local banks. And so they came together.
I love it.
And pooled their money and said, well, when one of us needs to borrow, then, we'll lend. And when, one of us needs this or that, we'll pull our resources. And that's really how it started. We also have another origin on the other side of the kind of the merger story at the post office, the postal workers.
Wow. Yeah. That's really neat. And, I'm not sure how far back this would go, but Alliance has really been growing and expanding. I've chatted with your team, and certainly I've got my own kind of experiences getting to work with you guys a lot. But where are you now kind of covering? What markets is Alliance now serving in? Sure.
So we go as far south as Big Spring. We have a small location down in Big Spring. And then, of course, we have the 8 locations here in Lubbock. And then we have a location right now in Amarillo. And we just, Amarillo is an exciting area for growth for us right now. We, of course, Lubbock's growing, and has been growing. And it's it's going to continue to be, a huge focus for us. But we're also expanding our physical footprint a little bit further up in Amarillo. We just recently, we have some lease space that we've had open just since September. And we have found a lot of demand for our services up there. We found a lot of reason to invest further. And so we just completed the purchase of a couple of acres right off of Sonsi next to the Kia dealership up there.
Yeah.
So hopefully in the next 6 months or so, you'll see some groundbreaking.
That's awesome.
See us moving in there.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well, I can just say, Matt and I were talking off air, and Alliance has been a huge blessing for, specifically my real estate business, right? So just as a little bit of a promotional, their, in-house commercial banking team have, I think personally, and I could talk off air, some of the best rental home products. Certainly you've got to check off the right boxes. The home's got a cash flow, so on and so forth. But to offer the various types of rental home loan products that you guys offer, that really stands out from, quite frankly, all of the other commercial lenders in town, and really, I see across the spectrum. And that's a real testament to you and your team and your leadership and vision to say, hey, how do we offer the products that make financial sense? Because we've got to, run a healthy balance sheet as a bank, but how do we serve that? And certainly I touch a lot of real estate. I do a lot of training for people in real estate investment. So it's been a real joy, Matt, I mean this sincerely, to get to, as I'm talking to people about investment analysis, saying, hey, and when you're looking at loan products, you need to go talk to, Mackenzie and Ashley and, your whole team in the commercial lending department. So
I appreciate that. No, we appreciate the business relationship. It's been an awesome relationship for us as well. And I appreciate you touching on some of the loan products that we offer. One of the things that was really important to me coming into the CEO role, back in 2017. And one of the things that we tried to do is say, where are the holes?
Yeah.
Where are the holes in the market, and what products can we create to fill those needs? And our commercial loan department, specifically our investment real estate, 1 to 4 family housing, we found that there was a lot of opportunity there, a lot of need for different products that we're able to put together. So.
Yep. Well, so I'm going to kind of lean into that from a leadership standpoint. What would you say in the years of your leadership? Because I think all leadership, we're growing personally, right? As we're leading and trying to help others grow, right? It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yes.
So how would you say, what are some culture leadership emphasis that you're really passionate about seeing filter its way through your team and organization?
So you say leadership, and that's one of those words that I feel like every time I turn, I see a new book, or I see somebody on a format like this, or wherever it is. Sometimes maybe it's an industry trade event, and they're talking about leadership and what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of room for interpretation on that.
There is.
And
that's right.
For me, when I think of leadership, I look for, and I try to promote and encourage the individuals that work for Alliance, that work for me, and fulfill our mission. I look for people who are engaged in what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I look for people that are engaged and passionate. And to me, if you're engaged and you're passionate, the rest is going to happen.
Yeah.
If you think about the things in your life where, think of the non-work related things that you're passionate about, right? If it's, let's say it's a hobby, and let's throw out golf.
Yeah.
I'm not a golfer, so I may get some references wrong. Maybe the only guy in financial services that doesn't golf, but it is what it is.
You've saved a few hours to devote to other things. I will say that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But you're going to learn everything about golf, right? If that's your passion, you're going to know all of the different club manufacturers. You're going to know all of the different pros out there. You're going to know the up and comers. You're going to follow all the tournaments. You're going to know all the courses. You're going to have a bucket list. You're going to pursue that passion, not even intentionally, with a growing knowledge base of everything that is golf. And you're going to, it's like setting goals or whatnot. You're going to set these subconscious reminders to anytime something that you find interesting or new knowledge, or new resource presents itself, you're going to latch onto it. Well, so what I find, if you can take that and put that into your work and put that into the people that are working with you, then I think you can develop leaders. And I think if you can promote that passion, and you can find out who maybe shouldn't be in leadership, right? If every day you're getting up and every day you get up and you find yourself feeling like you have to, you probably aren't in the right spot, and it's going to reveal itself.
it's going to reveal itself in your work, your productivity, your fruitfulness, your engagement with your other team members, employees. There's a phrase that's in, team building, employee culture building, whatever. I'm going to say, finding the right person that's on the right seat on the right bus. And so I'm kind of curious to help foster engagement and passion is trying to help your team members make sure they're in the right seat on the bus in the right position that fits their makeup, their skill set, their DNA, so to speak.
Yes.
How does that kind of come through in just your own organization and assisting your own team members?
I think that's one of those hard looks in the mirror for a lot of people when they find out they're not on the right seat of the bus.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, the more times that you confront that and initiate change around that, the more you learn. It's almost like it's a skill I think that you develop through repetition.
That's right.
I think you could study all you want. You could talk to as many leaders as you want, but I think going through that process and failing and then realizing those failures and then ultimately seeing when it works and when it doesn't, I think that experience develops that skill set, develops that, if it was a muscle, it would be just developing that muscle to where over time you begin to trust your instinct and your ability to kind of see that in people and in all the different ways that you would evaluate somebody, from their personality, their demeanor, obviously the measurable KPIs behind it.
Yep.
But I think that's one of those things, unfortunately, that you have to go through and get it wrong a few times before you really kind of figure it out. And I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
That's exactly right. And I think even just the idea that I think some people shy away from is when you see yourself not succeed, fail, mess up, whatever it may be, as a leader, as a worker, you sometimes pull back when I think the opposite is actually, and you alluded to it, is recognize there's weaknesses in life, but there's opportunities to exercise, to grow, to train, to cultivate, to develop the skill sets, the lessons that are not there.
Yeah.
And I think most of us as leaders, we recognize, I heard Craig Rochelle say this on his leadership podcast, and it was one of the most challenging kind of thoughts to digest. And it was around the idea of when I'm looking to leverage my own time and energy. So I'm looking to replace some of my time and energy with someone else. He said, here's the type of person to look for. You're looking for someone that can replace maybe a certain role or responsibility that you're currently overseeing, and they'll do it at 50% of your capacity today. But they have the makeup to grow to probably 80% of your capacity. That may be where their ceiling is.
Yeah.
And if you can find someone that can function at 50% today, but they've got growth in them, and that's the key, the growth in them.
Yep.
That's someone to explore. And as a leader, it's like, I don't want to give up 50%, but I know people have to grow.
Yeah.
This is how I grow.
That's right. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think too, to that point, you also find there's folks that are excellent leaders at a certain level.
Yeah.
And they may think they want to continue that trajectory as the organization grows, as the responsibilities grow. But you have to be honest with yourself throughout the entire journey and realize that, that may not be, there are ceilings there. There are points where we cap out individually. There's points where, different folks, their strength isn't in that, So I think it's just a constant evaluation.
It is.
Yeah. And it's being able to have that honest look in the mirror and not be swimming against the current.
Yep. Yep. So I'm going to shift a little bit and ask you about fintech technology, how it's technology is just, racing. And as a financial institution, as a credit union, I'm sure you're constantly trying to evaluate what are the tools, what are the technologies that we want to incorporate. What are some recent fintech things that you've seen maybe over the last few years that you're like, those have been great tools that's either helped us internally or externally for our customers and clients?
That is a fantastic question. That is obviously that's changing every space in every business.
Yeah.
And it's the pace of change it's blinding. I mean, it is just, it's insane how fast everything is changing. The expectations, ultimately it's the expectations of the membership, right?
Yeah.
So, and things that are happening subconsciously to all of us that require that result in us demanding a lot more out of the businesses that we the companies that we do business with. And so I think that when we look at really coming out of COVID was the accelerator, in my opinion, right? Where suddenly you had every meeting, had to be digital and high quality, and everybody wanted everything delivered to their doorstep yesterday. And people wanted to effectively have an online experience that was as good, if not better than the in-person experience. And so, for us, we've seen that just trying to make what I tell everybody in my staff when we're trying to develop new technology, and we've actually taken a lot of this on in-house. We're one of the few credit unions that have a technology department that is basically what they would tell you is we're becoming a fintech credit union. And so we're making a lot of investments in this space. And the goal is, I said, I want our members to be able to do business with us, and not literally, but I want them to be able to do as much as possible driving 75 miles an hour down the road, one click, right? Yeah. It needs to be as frictionless as possible, and it needs to be as accessible as possible and as convenient as possible. So we're investing in, obviously, all of the mobile application components of it. We're in the process of developing our own mobile app. And the big reason we're developing our own is we found a lot of the out-of-the-box options don't allow for the personal, the customization to the individual's needs, right? So we are getting into where we're leveraging large data sets internally so that we can offer you as the individual the next best product that is meaningful. And I'm not talking about offering products that are that just drive revenue for the credit union. I'm talking about products that are win-wins. I just had an all-employee meeting, and we spent half the meeting talking about what is a win-win. That's good. What is a member win-win? It means the member wins in the sense that they have a service that's valuable, adds value to their financial life. And the credit union wins in the sense that it allows us to drive enough revenue to expand this product to more members, right? So we make enough profit so that we can continue to expand services to a larger member base, but those products have to be meaningful. One of the ones we just developed is a completely automated skip-a-pay process. So this is one of those things that a lot of folks don't even know we do. And because in the past it was such a manual process and so time consuming that we really only did it once a year, and it was around the holidays to allow people to have a little bit of a relief for their debt payments. But the reality is we can do this up to 2 times per year, and the skip-a-pay process allows you to, with a couple of clicks off of your cell phone, skip a loan payment. And when I think about what that means for a lot of consumers, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. They are. The majority of people are. And if you look at what's happened with inflation over the last 3 years, ask anybody what they're paying for insurance today versus what they were paying 3 years ago.
It's astronomical.
It is. And there's not a lot of room left in a lot of budgets. And so when you have, in my opinion, we were able to develop a product that gives people, the mental relief of knowing, hey, if I do need a couple of new tires this month, and I don't have the extra resources for it, I can skip that payment. As long as I paid well over the last, several months, I don't have any late payments, I can skip that payment, and there's no penalty. There's no negative effect on my credit. There's no negative effect on me personally, and I can take care of that, or if my kid gets sick or whatever it is. And so that's been one of the meaningful developments we've been working on. Of course, the new mobile app.
And I love even the spirit behind that, because I think, what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to obligations, financial responsibilities, burdens, often when you get behind, when life hits you hard and when inflationary stuff hits you that you've got a lot of times no control over, you're earning the same income, you're responsible for the same stuff, just life is hard sometimes. There's some shame and some weight, some psychological weight, emotional weight that comes with it. Right. And to offer a product where someone can provide a solution that they need without having to because I think half the times, and you probably know this, people are afraid, embarrassed, ashamed to pick up the phone and ask for help. It's just too uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And yet they need it. and they'll dig the hole a little deeper because they just are unwilling to ask for it. So to offer them not only a real practical, easy solution, but also, I don't know, I'm not sure that your intention was to help address the emotional side to it, but it is.
No, it is. And that's something we talked about in our meeting is that, I think there's a huge psychological benefit there of just knowing that's available. And you're right, you're not coming in and asking for it in person.
Yep.
It's something you can do. It's right there next to your loan on your app. And you just say, I'm going to skip that payment this month. Don't tell anybody why. You don't have to be ashamed. It's a product that's available to you if you want to use it.
Yeah, man, I love it. That's fantastic. Well, and you're exactly right. I think to be trying to lead rather than react to the technology changes, leading with your own team and resourcing that in such a way, I think, again, is another testament for why Alliance Credit Union is really serving people. People are responding to it because you are leading the change, not just reacting to it a year late.
Thanks. That's been the goal, is to just really try to find those, just like when we came in and tried to develop, find the holes in the market. So
that's right.
Could offer products. It's the same thing.
Yep. That's right. Well, I'll kind of pivot to, again, this All Things Energy podcast, and we alluded to it a little bit. I'm curious from a financial institution perspective. You've probably observed energy's impact at all levels of society, certainly the increase in cost for energy related.
Yeah.
I think we've seen, you mentioned being from Houston, we've got a decent bit of business in Houston. Power availability in Houston sadly has been disrupted a lot more so than we've seen here in West Texas. Sure. But kind of what observation, where do you see energy intersecting in, consumers, businesses, West Texas, et cetera?
Gosh, that's a great question. I probably should have been prepared for that question since this is the Rise Energy podcast. Like I said in the beginning, my interests are really wide ranging, and I am fascinated with the renewable space. I'm fascinated with the deregulation in general because it's new to Lubbock, right? And so to see that happen and to see the effects of that, I've been really interested in kind of where all of this is going. But I think the bottom line is the same, and it's the same thread I think we've been talking about, and that is that it's where it impacts everybody's household, right? Yep. Where it impacts their budget, their bottom line, and I think everybody's always trying to find a way to be as efficient as possible to try to reduce their costs at the end of the day, and I think that when we look forward at all of the different types of energy that we're going to hopefully be able to economically anyway be able to tap into to kind of add to the pool of options. My hope is that it empowers consumers to have a little bit more control over what that costs them and ultimately, how it's going to fill their needs. Well,
and I think, and I'll just even kind of allude to it. I think that what you described there is what drives me, quite frankly, in this business in Rise Energy has been this kind of looking at the trends and what's happening in our state, around the country in terms of the energy impact, and then asking, how does technology, what assets are out there that are viable, that are productive, that are incentivized in such a way that it can actually have meaningful impact on saving and helping consumers, organizations, companies, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of give you a little glimpse of it because this is kind of fun to see, in the same way that there's some fintech stuff that's really making its way in the energy space, on the commercial side and the residential side. They're kind of split up into two. I've been waiting and now watching battery technology, again, in the same way that fintech's really racing ahead. Battery technology is accelerating so much so. We're working with Power to Choose, one of the energy providers, that rather than going out and building a bunch of power plants, which take years and years and years to develop and billions of dollars, they are deploying, paying for hundreds, maybe thousands of pretty large commercial batteries that they'll come next to, and I'll pick out an Alliance Credit Union location there off of the Spur in Milwaukee that you got to write a check for electricity, and it ain't cheap.
Right.
And it's probably not getting cheaper over the next 2, 5, 10 years. Right.
That's right.
And so their vision is honestly to pay for these pretty large commercial batteries. And these batteries are so valuable in the ERCOT grid and power management and being able to deploy energy when energy is really needed the most, because of just a click of a button, energy is deployed from batteries.
Right.
You can recharge these batteries at night when the cost of energy drops. So you can optimize these batteries in such a way that it's super valuable to the energy provider. And what they do in turn is they go to the customer and say, hey, we're going to put this battery on site next to your facility. We're going to pay for it, operate it, manage it. And we're going to pay you almost like a cell phone tower lease. Okay. We're going to pay you thousands of dollars a year to house this battery on site. And because we're an energy provider, we're going to look at the cost of energy contracts across the market, power to choose, and we're going to guarantee the lowest price of energy for your facility. So we're going to pay you thousands of dollars a year for the next 10 years because this battery's got a 15-year life. Okay. We're going to drop your cost of energy at every single time we have to renew contracts. And if there's ever a power failure, and I hope there's not, but I think there might be some point.
There will be at some point.
There's a power resource that can provide some kind of benefit in that regard. And I think we're running numbers for some customers, saving them, one customer in Midland saving 42% from his current energy cost over the next 3 to 5 years. A lot of nonprofits and churches where utility costs are eating up a larger and larger portion of their operating budget and their budget where they're trying to serve the community. They have less of that to do. We can come along and save. And there's rolling out almost a very similar residential model that's in that probably earlier stages where for the consumer, companies will come in and pay for the cost to install a battery system, sometimes a battery and solar system, no cost to the customer, but they're optimizing these assets.
So regardless of the source of that power, it's just a battery that you can actually store and help smooth out the demand.
What's kind of interesting, energy is priced every 5 minutes in the market, almost like a stock market, right? And when there are calls for energy, and the way the energy is now, there's a lot of solar production around the state. From about 8 in the morning to about maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Starts tailing off, and wind production doesn't come on to about 9 o'clock at night. So you've got a 3 or 4 hour window where what's happening at 5, 6 o'clock across most households in the state.
That's when everybody's getting it.
Everyone's coming home, cranking on the AC. The computers are going on, fridge is running, washer. Yeah. So there's this massive pull of energy in a window of time when there's less energy resources. Sure. So the state incentivizes, hey, there's a call for power. We need power. And they price power up higher. So these batteries can optimize arbitrage, so to speak, discharge when the power is needed the most, recharge when it's not needed. And you can, again, pass along those savings to the customer. So it's kind of one example that we as a company, we're really excited. We kind of get to be at the forefront to go to customers and say, hey, can we help save you money? Because we know if we can save you money, hopefully that trickles through to your organization and maybe those costs get passed down to your customers and consumers.
For sure.
So, So again, I think we're all in the same boat. How do we create products? How do we attach to new technologies that can better serve our community and people?
Yeah. Because if you can do that, you're going to win every time.
That's right. So we'll kind of close up. I like to ask in some kind of rapid fire questions. First one is, what is the most common financial mistake you see? What's maybe something that if you could give some wisdom, a common financial mistake that people can maybe overcome and learn?
They, too often, people pursue large financial purchases based on their wants rather than their needs. Yeah. And I think that, they will get too hung up on a depreciating asset. Yeah. So think of a vehicle or, something that's not going to add value over time. And I think that all of us, are victims of this. We live in the present, and when times are good, you feel like you can, bite off a little bit more of the apple, and then inevitably life happens, something will happen, and then they find themselves struggling. And so, I think that by and large, it takes different forms. You see it from all walks of life as well. I mean, it doesn't matter what really the income is. It's about how much you spend. And unfortunately, you see a lot of folks focusing on spending a lot of money in the wrong places.
Yep. Man, this would be a whole nother conversation and discussion. I taught a bunch of college students this past week on, some, financial wealth building, so forth. And I was like, I think one of the biggest drivers for setting yourself up is to live below your means, to be content, to delay gratification. Psychologists have done this study, and you've probably seen some allusions to it. It's really fascinating that the larger the purchase, the shinier the object, the increase in actual fulfillment, the gratification you get from it, it's a measurable stat, a psychological, mental, measurable benefit I get from it. It decreases with each level you go up to.
Sure.
And we don't get that in the moment because it's exciting, it's emotional. And yet what it does and what it, erodes the financial margin to be able to weather life. So I think we both, if we could get on the pedestal and say, you don't need to buy as much.
Well, and I think you hit on it too, the discipline, the delayed gratification. And if you can figure out how to consistently live below your means, it's empowering, and it empowers individuals to ultimately over the long term pursue those life passions and have that insulation from, volatility, which is going to happen.
Yep. All right. I got to tell a quick story. This is too good. When my wife and I were early married, we just moved to Lubbock, and a little bit older mentor person said, "Hey, take your wife on a dream date. Here's what I want you to do on your dream date." And so I remember sitting at Daybreak Coffee, and he goes, "Take a piece of paper, draw a big circle on the paper, and then start writing around the outside of the paper, young in your marriage, what in your wildest imagination, the wildest dreams, what kind of life would you like to live? And be a little, materialistic for a moment. What kind of home would that look like? Your young 20s, what would just be like, wow, that would be an amazing life to have a home like that, or a car you're driving, or the kind of life to live, the hobbies that you're doing, future, with your kids. Write down on that paper, mark it down, fold it up, put it somewhere you can remind yourself." And he said, "You will probably reach a level sooner than you think where those things are possible."
Yeah.
And he said, "That's great." He goes, "But here's my biggest encouragement. When you reach that level, probably soon you realize, do not draw a bigger circle."
Yeah.
And live a life of overflow. And anyway, that has stayed with us so much. And quite truthfully, it's impacted our own financial life of just being really content. We live an incredible life, but we could live a lot bigger, but we don't want to.
Right. Well, ultimately, isn't it really about the experiences you're having?
Yes.
That you love?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that what we're all trying to work for?
Yep.
And I think the material oftentimes becomes just a big distraction.
Yep.
With that. I think that's the same thing you're saying.
That's right.
I like that story though.
No, it's fun. It's great. So for budgeting purposes, all right, an app or a spreadsheet, which are you, what's Matt's go-to?
Me personally, spreadsheet.
Come on, power to the spreadsheet, baby. Oh man, I love me some spreadsheets. What's your favorite way to give back in the community? What gets you super excited?
Oh gosh, the fundamental mission of the credit union, when people ask, okay, well, I was not for profit, member-owned financial cooperative, how are we going to benefit as the member? And when I look up and I tell you the way that we consistently give back is and this is just the way we operate the business, but the way we give back is through the higher return on deposits and then the lower interest rate on loans. And by and large, over time, we've held true to that. Yeah. Been consistent in that. Now, you may be able to look up at the calendar, say, oh, well, in June, so-and-so had a higher rate on the, okay, yeah, maybe so. But over time, and it's part of our strategy, is to make sure that we're able to pay higher rates of deposits on that, and then higher rates on your deposits, and then a lower interest rate on loans. That's just doing what we do every day, right? And that, and I do get a lot of satisfaction on that, because that feels like we are really helping the community.
Yes.
And those dollars add up.
They do.
They add
up
to a whole lot of dollars. But on top of that, we have formed the Alliance Credit Union Foundation, and this has been really fun. So my employees, we all voluntarily donate, not everybody, but the vast majority donate a piece of their paycheck towards the foundation every month. And then every quarter we vote as a company on who we want to get that money to.
Yeah, that's good.
And then we have our community relations team go out, and we get to present a check to maybe the Boys and Girls Ranch, or maybe it's the food bank, or something like that, where another charity or a charity that we can have an impact with. And so we get to come together as a group and donate those dollars as a group, and then we get to share that story as a group. And that's felt very uplifting. Everybody talks about when you volunteer or when you do something good for others, you get so much for yourself. Yep. And so that's been really fun. And then on top of that, we've been really invested in donating scholarship money to all of the local high schools.
Oh, wow.
And all of a lot of the local trade schools where, high school students
get
access to funds to try to fulfill their future.
Man, it's cliché, but it is so true. It is so much better to give. 100%. The joy, the reward, what comes back to you. personally, professionally. It's just incredible. All right. Last question here. And this is, what would you tell your 20-year-old, 22-year-old Matt? You've said so many great things, so maybe we, repeat it, but, if you had Matt sitting across from you and you said, hey buddy, pay attention to this right here.
Yeah. I think I would tell myself not to worry so much.
Oh, that's good.
Don't, I've heard people say, don't read the comments, don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah. Don't worry so much, and take a few chances and pursue your passion.
That's good.
That would be it.
That's really good, man. I hope you heard that. I really do. There's a lot of wisdom, and you're going to grow. You're going to get over it probably faster than you think. So don't carry that weight and worry.
Yeah.
That's good.
It doesn't, there's no good that comes from it.
No, there's not. Not at all. Not at all. So if people want to get in touch with you personally, I mean, you LinkedIn, email, social, anything like that to kind of connect to you?
Sure. Yeah. You can always email me, mgrannan@alliancecutx.com. I'm not big in the social media space. I know I should be. I have hard time finding the time for it. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
So don't do a lot on LinkedIn, but you're always welcome to email me, and I'd love to connect.
Yeah. Well, and of course, it's hard to drive around and not see the fantastic Alliance Credit Union locations all over Lubbock and Amarillo and other markets. So again, this is another episode of our All Things Energy episode. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt. I've enjoyed it. And if you want to connect with us, of course, you can catch us at GetRise Energy, our website, getriseenergy.com, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're here to serve you. If you've got a commercial need, a residential need, if you want to talk to us about how to put those batteries on your site, get paid several $1,000s a year, we'd love to explore that with you. And until next time, make it a good one.